Let's talk about the term God, why I use it, how I see it, and why some people will never ever resonate with the term God and calling themselves God, and how that decision wasn't theirs. Let me clarify. Now, all your religious texts are horrible mistranslations of the Emerald Tablets, but even the Emerald Tablets is a little bit fabricated because of who wrote it. But again, that was by design, on purpose. But even from the Emerald Tablets, your history is always going to come from the Anunnaki, or Anunnaki, pronounced Anunnaki, who were your quote-unquote gods at the time. But again, by design, why a lot of people do not like the Anunnaki. But Malachi Z. York, who was one of these Anunnaki, him, Enki, they specialized in making themselves seem like more than what they actually were, or that they were the only ones, or that their God was the highest God, when in reality it's different bases and different levels of gods and what they do and roles, and everything as below is always above, you know what I'm saying? Now, the Anunnaki were us, which is a 50-50 statement, but they were black, not because they descended from Etherians, nothing like that. Anu, their father, he was a mix. He united the races, the Lyran races and the reptilian races that was already formed on different planets and etc. Like, it's a whole different lore that we can get into on a live or a different video, etc. But he united those races. He had a direct heir, Enlil, and he had another son, Enki, who was conceived by a woman that was not of royalty. A whore. But he was a god nonetheless. And back in these times, God was just the normal generator or destroyer, creator of your reality. Because when we were in these times, family, creating life, creating planets, it was like this. It was easy. We had technology of your means. Then if you get into the whole gold story and the fight between Anu and the other dude, I forgot his Alalu, and how he left and went to Earth, and then he contacted us talking about how there's gold here, etc. The whole gold story. Again, we could talk about it another time in a live or some shit where I got more time than 10 minutes. But long story short, they got to Earth, they seen the lands, they were mining for gold, and was like, Enki talking about some, I'm not sure we really want to keep working. I feel like we need somebody to do this work for us. That's when they found the existing hominids that was already here due to the natural evolution, you know, the fish water bullshit. He seen the original hominids, and they ended up fusing the hominids with their own blood. But all they did was get the eggs from the woman apes or the hominids that was already here, and place them into the woman, the Anunnaki woman, and birth these new beings, which are these avatars that you see today. Reptilian, Lyran, Hominid, Anunnaki. That's what these bodies are. So why you're going to see these ripples in our skin is why a lot of things are going to make more sense. Now, I want us to start separating Enlil and Enki, because people like Rashad Jamal is always going to combine the two when they're two separate beings. Enlil never wanted this. Enlil didn't want to masquerade as God. This was Enki. There was almost wars about this decision. But Enki and Nenharsag, they got the majority of it. They did it. That's how the Garden of Eden became a thing, etc. This is where Adapa and Eden came in. Enki told Eden, or Eve, if you Christian, Enki told Eve that they were gods, that they were made in God's image. So therefore, they had the power of the gods, and they could become like them, which he knew damn well he shouldn't have. She took that to Adapa, they talked about it, etc. A couple shards down the line, Adapa ends up going to space with Enki and me and Anu, and everybody's like, what the fuck, a human? Blah, 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 blah. But Adapa ended up becoming the first human that was indicted with the Anunnaki. So much time onward, grandchildren and shards later, the Anunnaki set up cities and bases near Eridu, Africa, etc., while they were masquerading as these guys' gods. There was worship, prayer, not sacrifices, but there was lower vibrational gods at the time that did want sacrifices, and this is where your current sacrifices and your government officials want to sacrifice. These are the gods that they are sacrificing to, these Babylonian Sumerian gods. The time goes forward, and the Anunnaki decide to move on with their lives. Some left the other realms, some went back to Planet X, Sirius, some went to Mars, so on and so forth. But during those times, one of the special unique abilities and technology that the Anunnaki had was to be able to transfer their consciousness into these avatars, which is how situations like Noah or his grandson Methuselah, like how these situations were to happen. Because sometimes they would come down, descend, and mate with these women. not to get confused with the Nephilim, because that is it's a part of the story, but it's just a little later. Those Nephilim came from Mars, like that's a whole different story. But sometime later, the gods decided to leave. You know, some go back to Mars, some go back to Sirius. My son, there's guys like Nergal and Lilith, like that rule the underworld. Like it's 9 realms on this plane of existence, and you know what I'm saying, everybody went to disperse, some went to other galaxies, you know what I'm saying, everybody went to their own different ways. But before that, the true Adamite race, Adamite meaning the first ones born out of Ninharsag, the first one, Adapa and Eden. You know what I'm saying? They specifically chose that bloodline to be the catalyst of their consciousness. Every time they wanted to come to Earth, and you know what I'm saying, it would be through the Adamite race. It was only on rare occasions where they would choose anybody else, the Adamites, anything else. But the pure bloodline was just most fit for the Anunnaki. But through this bloodline, Marduk embedded in their DNA to be, what's the word? To be the pastors, I guess, to be the pathway to worship. Like, this is where your ideas of churches and prayer, like this is where all this comes from, is because they set in these beings, they set in their DNA to be the leaders of this worship, to be the rulers, you feel me? While the gods weren't here. So the idea of worship and you giving them their energy will continue even while they weren't here, family. Because they don't even have to be there. Like you being here, saying their name, giving them their energy, they won't even have to be here and they will receive that energy, family. That's just how fifth dimensional metaphysics work. And see, me, I'm always gonna call myself a god, because I know who I am beyond this realm. I know who, I know which, I know what I know who I am. So I'm always gonna be God. I don't have to be you. I would never put my status on you, you feel me? Because I know who, this is for me. But you gotta understand that some people will never ever call themselves God because they were, I don't want to say victims, but they were the ones that were under this worship, that were listening to the Adamite race, that was keeping on the facade of these gods. This is where your Christianity, Muslim, Islam, this is where all these things come from. Even if you go into the book of Enoch or Noah's Ark, the god that Noah is talking to is Marduk, who is Enki's son, but more than Enki's son, he was his direct clone. They can always transfer consciousness. They were one of the same pot. There's nothing Marduk could have done that went over Enki's head. But much like Enki did back then, what I'm doing now is telling you guys that you guys can be God. Everything that they did, you can do much better, especially with the power of emotions on your side. But again, a lot of people are never going to resonate with that because they were always trapped in this religion cycle, and that was by design, family. I don't blame them for that. But yes, these avatars were made to be slaves, family. And this has nothing to do with the whites, the Mexicans, the Arabs, the Dravidians, nothing to do with them, because they only got here a couple 500, 600 years ago, family. Like, all our history, the amount of times they went into our history is pretty annoying, family, because they weren't here for that fucking long. Only the Marsh Arabs. And that was because Marduk wanted to create a race to rule us over. Then that was before he was kicked off the Nern and made his own Caucasian race. Like the Marsh Arabs and the Caucasians and the rest of those are two different time period races. But I say that to say, like, even in your Bibles, when they're talking about Yahweh or stories of people talking to the gods or just to God, that is Enki, that is Marduk, that is the guy that you do not want to be talking to. That set all of this in play for it to be worship, for you to worship him. Everything he says, everything he does is going to make you worship. He even genetically modified these avatars to have a worship gene. But family, you're not supposed to be worshiping anything but your higher self. But again, when there's generations of worship, family, it's in your DNA. So it's going to be hard for people to get that ideology. But I don't say that you're God for those people. I say you're God to the Anunnaki gods that are watching this, so they can remember who the fuck they are. And if there's some of those previous victims that watch and wake up and become gods, family, I'm even happier. Because yes, you are not just a hominid, family. You are God, and you can be, and you can create multiple universes that you do every day just by impregnating a woman. You're so much more powerful than you believe. And for the Caucasian race, we can make that a different video, because y'all don't have soul. Y'all are body and spirit, but y'all can obtain soul, family. We have races like the Pleiadians that were just like the human races, but evolved to a point where they're higher than these avatars. You feel me? But we're gonna talk about that in another. We out of minutes, so I'm gonna talk y'all.